Okay, now we're going to talk about inverse functions. All right, so right here it says find the inverse of sine 0. Well, the 0 is a value. Remember what we're normally doing. We normally see sine theta, and that equals a value. Right? So you just type in your calculator sine whatever the theta is. So let's say if we said sine of 30 degrees, you would get 0.5 or 1/2. Or you could look on your unit circle. Well, if they give you the value, so if you're looking at on the unit circle, they're saying that the sine of this theta is 0. Well, in order for that to be true, that would have to have a 0 height. Well, a 0 height is going to be at 0 degrees, or it's going to be here at pi, or 180 degrees. That's when sine has a height of 0. So you could just look at the unit circle, or you have a calculator, and this is what you type in. You hit the at least on the TI 30s, right? You hit second sine. You'll notice that when you hit second, above the sine button is the kind of in purple sine to the raised -1. So you type second sine, and then that gives you left parentheses, type 0, and then you'll end up getting 0. If you look on the unit circle, the height of sine, the height is 0 when sine is at 0 degrees. So then you would say 0, or, I just shouldn't say or, and pi. There are really two answers. I think for this purpose, they're probably looking for one. So you just put in that first quadrant 0, but sine is, sine has the value of 0 at 0 and at pi, or at 180 degrees. All right, so let me get rid of this stuff. Okay, let's look over here at this one. Erase that. Well, this says cosecant, and that kind of looks like a mess. So what I'm first going to do is, remember, cosecant and sine are inverses. So I'm going to write sine of the raised -1, and I'm going to do the inverse of that. So that's going to be -3 over 2√3. Well, we can't have a radical in the denominator, so I'm going to multiply top and bottom by √3. So now we have sine to the raised -1. I shouldn't say equal right there. Sorry about that. It's this. Well, √3 times √3 is 3. So that's -3 √3 over 2 times 3. Those cancel, leaving -√3 over 2. And again, if you look at the unit circle, well, sine is √3 over 2 up here at 60 degrees. It's negative down here at -60 degrees. Well, -60 degrees happens to be 300 degrees. And it's also negative right there. Well, 180 plus 60 at 240. Okay, so you could rewrite this. And once you figure that out, you could really type into your calculator sine negative second sine, so second sine, and then -√3. Remember to close the parentheses, divide 2. Now it's going to give you one of these. It's going to say -60, I think, as long as your calculator's in negative mode. Well, -60 means the same thing as 300 degrees, but it's also right there. That would be -120. The -120 is the same as 240 degrees, right? And since we're talking about, so this is 4 pi thirds, and this is 5 pi thirds, because 60 degrees is pi thirds. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. All right. So that's how we're doing that. Let's get rid of this stuff. Now we just have cosine, so second cosine. And when you hit second cosine, it gives you that raised -1 symbol. You type in -1, but again, if we look at a unit circle, well, cosine's +1 at 0. Cosine is -1 at pi, or at your calculator if you have in degree mode, we'll say 180. All right, and then let's do this last one right here. So secant is the same as 1 over cosine. And then I'm going to put inverse 1. Well, the inverse of 1 is just 1, so you really could just say second cosine, and just for the heck of it, we'll flop those even though they mean the same thing, which is 1. But again, if you look at the unit circle, cosine is 1 at one place when you're at 0 degrees or 0 radians. So radians are indicated with pi. All right, that's it for finding the exact value when you're talking about inverse. Now I'll see if I can get this stopped.